So in today's video, we're going to continue fitting this 4x4 box into my Vauxhall Nova. So the first thing we need to do to fit this is to take this transfer box off and make it look like that one. Now I could just fit that to that. However, this one here is locked and that one isn't. So that one's still got the original clutch in, this one hasn't. So we're going to take the transfer box off. We're going to cut some brackets off it, some lugs and a few bits like that. We're also going to inspect inside the transfer box. We're going to take it apart and have a look inside, see exactly how it works. So first things first, we've got to unbolt it. Now it's held on with a number of M8 bolts with 30mm heads. Some of them are a little bit awkward to get to, even with the gearbox off the car like this. So I use a combination of spanners, ratchet spanners and sockets. Once they're all out, it just simply slides off. Straight away, there's a few alarm bells because I've noticed there's no O-ring between the two. It's just got gasket glue. So now the box is off, I turn it on its end and unbolt the M8 bolts. These have got 6mm Allen heads holding the end of the viscous coupling on essentially. This splits the box in two. So the viscous coupling and the clutch slave just pulls straight off from this. And when I say clutch slave, I mean the clutch which engages the four-wheel drive system. So the biggest problem with these transfer boxes is the clutches wear and then the slave cylinder pops its seal, pushing hydraulic fluid into the transfer box. Basically it pours pressurized hydraulic fluid out the breather of the transfer box and mixes it in with the gear oil. So the clutch plates are similar to motorcycle clutch plates, the wet clutch plates. These have been removed on this and it's had locking plates fitted, which makes it essentially a direct drive. So there we go, we got it all apart. The seller of this did promise me that it had locking plates, which it does. So that locks the inner to the outer. That replaces the clutch pack. So yeah, he was bang on what you're saying. So it's a little bit dirty inside, but it all looks in good condition. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give it a good clean out, and then we'll take it from there. So when I say a direct drive, I do not mean this is a permanent four-wheel drive system, because it's not. It still has a viscous coupling, which will still limit the power to the back wheels. Also means it won't fully engage all the time. It will slip a little bit if it needs to. So yeah, it's kind of best of both worlds being locked. They're meant to drive a lot better like it. Anyway, back to what I'm doing. So I use petrol as a degreaser, and it works really well at getting rid of tough, grimy oil stains. So it's top tip from me, and it's one of the best degreasers you can use, readily available, and it's far cheaper than a lot of the stuff off the shelf. So I stripped it all down. As you can see, I've made a bit of a mess, but trust me, I know where it all goes. And the original transfer box, well, a bit dirty inside, but it wasn't in the best condition. Some of the bearings I wasn't happy with, a little bit noisy, for example. Now, yes, I'm sure I could knock that bearing out. It won't be too much of a problem. But as I have another one, like this one here, which I've already stripped, as you can see, which is in much better condition, I decided to go with this. So I've stripped it, given it a quick clean. This is the one what I actually used for mocking up in the first place. So this is the one that's already been modified. And a stroke of good luck, actually got locking plates in as well. So we're going to carry on cleaning it all and then rebuild this one onto that gearbox. So this is the section where the hydraulic oil would enter. So normally I have a fitting on here and thread. Now I've cut this off in a previous video. I'm going to tidy this up today, and I'm also going to cap the hole. Now I've been told you don't need oil in here. However, looking at it, I would say it would benefit from oil because there's bearings. So I think I'm going to put some grease in it, but I'm also going to put some normal oil in as well. Maybe a bit of ATF, because that's what it should have. Like I say, people say you don't need to, but I can't see why you'd run a bearing dry, so we're not going to do that. So we're going to grind this down. I'm going to tap this hole here. I'm going to put a stainless steel bolt in it. I'm going to grind it all flush, and I'm also going to use a bit of Loctite, and that's going to seal it up beautifully. Now I'd like to think all the best engine tuners have got a workbench a bit like this. Right, so what do? We grind it flat, we tap it with an M8 tap, a little bit awkward because it's at an angle, and then I put my bolt in with plenty of Loctite. Once it's tight, I then lop it off. I start with a hacksaw and then finish with a grinder because it's a bit hard to cut. And then I finish it up with a file. Once that's done, I use a centre punch, just put a couple of knocks in around the edge. This is going to stop it coming loose because it's going to basically peen it over. And then I dress it back one last time with a file. Right, so that's all done now, cleaned up, and it's looking a lot better. Really happy with that. So next job is to start cleaning everything else a bit more, and then it can go back together. And as always, I take particular care making sure the environment I work in is absolutely spotless before I do a job like this. One little bit of dirt or grit could absolutely ruin this, so I make sure everything's spotless first. I sweep the floor, clean all the rubbish away, as you can see. So what I've noticed is this has clearly been a part. Now, obviously we know it's been a part because it's got locking plates, but also there's quite a lot of engineer markings inside. For example, there's a number there, V38755. I have no idea what it means, but someone's clearly etched that in, and it also says P3110. So if anybody knows what that means, just let me know in the comments because I'm really interested. But I'm assuming it means it's been tested and calibrated, and it's all good, hopefully. So I use a bit of 320 grit sandpaper just to clean all the gasket faces. There isn't actually gaskets on this, it's just sealant. When I clean it all back again with petrol. Tip all the rubbish out and use a bit of brake cleaner just to get the last few bits off. And it's looking a lot better now. I'm really happy with it. Right, so it's all clean now. Let's start rebuilding. So what goes where? That definitely goes in there. And that goes in there. Now I am going to put a bit of oil in because I don't like to assemble stuff dry. This is just gear oil. So to all intents and purposes, this is kind of like a backwards diff. So what I've just put in is the crown wheel. Shaft that goes out your gearbox is a little bit like your pinion. So this is where the clutch plates would have gone originally. I've got locking plates which basically lock this to the casing, allowing the drive to go straight through this into the viscous coupler. So these locking plates have all got to go in the same way. Now it's not as complicated as it sounds. They won't physically fit if you don't line them up properly, but it is a little bit frustrating turning them until you get it right. So once they're all in and seated properly, I drizzle a bit more oil in. I clean up the gasket face one last time and apply a bit of gasket sealant. Now this is the Victor Iron stuff. I've complimented this in the past. It's really good stuff. I'd highly recommend it. It's not that expensive. I then put on the modified slave section. Now, I'm not really sure if this is what you call a slave cylinder, but that's what it does to me. That's what I'm going to call it. Apply a little bit more gasket sealant onto the other side. Then it's ready for the viscous coupler to be knocked onto that. Now I have to use a copper hammer to do this because it is a little bit tight, but it does go on. And finally, I put the bolts in and torque them up to manufacturer's spec. Now it's all assembled, I then fill it up with gear oil. Now I found the easiest way to do this was to make a little adapter hose what goes on the breather. So I take the fill plug out the side, fill it up until oil comes out. Once it comes out, you know it's bang on. So that's the transfer box, all rebuilt and ready to be fitted, which takes us nicely to today's sponsor. So I've been using Max Peeling Rods products for a few years now, and I've always been really impressed with not only the quality, but the price. So to start off with, we used the high performance steel con rods and Carl's 210 horsepower naturally aspirated 2 litre Vauxhall Nova, a bit like this. And more recently, we've been using these Nissan S13 coilovers on this very heavily modified 4-wheel drive Vauxhall Nova. So when they reached out to me and asked if I want a sponsorship deal, I absolutely jumped at the chance. Now, I would never promote a brand I did not believe in. So if the quality on these parts wasn't good, I wouldn't be using them, full stop. But in my opinion, they're not only affordable, they're also really good quality. So they've kindly sent me these two items for my Nova. Now this is a GT 3076 Turbo, which is capable of about 450 to 500 horsepower. Absolutely perfect for the 400 brake horsepower mark I want to achieve on this. They've also sent me a 38mm wastegate to go with this. So first off, we've got the wastegate. Now, first impressions is the quality looks really good. Now these are pretty cheap if I'm honest, and I can't see why they're so cheap. They look really well made. Casting looks good. Yeah, looks great. It's on a V-band, as you can see. Also comes with all the fittings. You get the banjos and the vacuum line pipes. We've also got some really nice V-bands, which are obviously ready to be welded on the manifold, the downpipe. Again, quality of them is really good. I hope you can see it on the camera. Really nicely machined. And we've got some really nice clamps, which again look really good quality. Not cheap, nasty stuff. Yeah, really happy with that. Whoa, wow. It's a lot bigger than I was expecting. Jeez. That's huge. So this bad boy's got a high performance aluminium compressor wheel and a high performance steel turbine wheel. It's got uprated bearings and overall the quality looks excellent. I'm over the moon with it. So my verdict, it's absolutely massive, far bigger than I was expecting. It looks really well made and I'm super stoked to get it fitted. This is going to make some big power. It's going to look awesome. Max Speeding Rods offer a wide range of products. They do tuning parts, suspension parts, standard vehicle parts, tools, you name it, they pretty much sell it. Have a look on the website. If you're interested in anything, I've got an exclusive 10% discount code, which is in the description below on this video. The individual products you've just seen, there's links to them separately, and there's also a link to their website so you can have a browse, have a look through. So once again, a massive thank you to Max Speeding Rods. I cannot wait to get these products fitted to this car. Cheers. Right, now the transfer box is out of the way. Next job is to get the gearbox fit to this. Then I'm going to bolt the transfer box on. Now I could put the transfer box on now and then bolt it up, but I'm by myself and it's quite a heavy item, so I think it's just going to be a little bit easier to do it without. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. I'm not sure if it was easy doing it this way, but this is the way I did it. So putting the gearbox in like it would be a front wheel drive gearbox, that was pretty straightforward, especially with a 2-post lift and a transmission stand. Went straight in, I bolted all the bell housing bolts up, as you should. And that is the easy bit out of the way. Now, this was 7 o'clock Sunday morning when I was doing this, and it kind of gave me a bit of false hope. Because from this moment onwards, the job was a bit of a nightmare. So I had to mount the gearbox on its mount so I could take the transmission stand away. And that's where my first problem became quite evident. Now, this heavy-duty little bracket which I made, which links the rear mount to the gearbox, basically, I couldn't get anything on to tighten it up when the gearbox was in situ. So what I had to do, I had to drill a hole in the back so I could get a socket and an extension through. Not the end of the world, but it set me back a little bit. Then it was a case of putting the front mount on and sitting it on my tall axle stand so I could use a transmission stand to put the transfer box in. This was a little bit of faffing about off camera because I did try and use both at the same time, but they kept catching each other. Hence why I had to do it this way. I could have just lifted the transfer box in, but it is quite heavy and I didn't want to drop it on my toes. Now you've got to remember this transfer box is a little bit of an afterthought. The gearbox was invented way before the 4-wheel drive system, so it kind of bolts in where the original bearing would be for the diff. And because of that, it's really difficult to get to the bolts, especially on the car. And this took me absolutely bloody ages. A lot of the bolts you could only really get to with a spanner at best. You couldn't even get a ratchet spanner in. It was just really awkward. I couldn't see them from the top, couldn't see them from the bottom. It was just complete guesswork and doing it by feel. Once it's all tight though, I then put the rear mount on. Again, it took a little bit of wiggling because all the mounts are solid, but we got there. And then it was just a case of nipping it all up, and that is the gearbox fully mounted and safe. So I'm really pleased now. So that's the gearbox and transfer box bolted up, ready for test drive. Now it was far more difficult than I thought it would be. It's really tight and I spent what felt like hours just struggling trying to get to every little nut and bolt. Very difficult, yeah, even with a lift, wouldn't advise. So next episode we're going to do 2 things I've never done before. Number 1 is to fit 5 stud front hubs to this with turbo brakes. And the second thing, we are going to shorten the gear cables. I'm going to show you exactly how I'm going to do it. And we're hopefully going to take a lot of slack out of them, make them really tight and a nice direct fit, and they're going to feel awesome. So if that kind of thing interests you, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and stay tuned for more. See you later. Goodbye.